Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. I am your host, Joshua Sines. I am very excited for today. Today's episode is based on request, and let me explain to you guys what I'm talking about before I get started. Today's episode, for today's episode, I have decided to follow a request that was brought to my attention by a fellow watcher of my content and listener of my content from Facebook. And let me explain to you guys about this request. This guy has requested that I read this article from a columnist on ESPN.com and basically go through it. So, when he sent it to me, I decided, sure, why not? It should be fun. And by the way, if you are listening and if you are watching, I am giving you the opportunity to call in the show whenever you want. Again, number is 724-444-7444. Once you call in, you're going to be requested an ID, and the ID is 131026 for anyone that wants to listen in. But anyway, moving on. By the way, shout out to this guy. His name is Mike O. Smith. Very passionate man. And loves to watch my content from what I understand. So shout out to you, sir, and thank you so much for this request. I appreciate it. So, with that in mind, let's get started. So, I'm going to start, and by the way, the link to this article on ESPN is on ESPN.com, but I will leave a link to this article in the YouTube video that goes along with this episode on my YouTube channel. So, here we go. The title of the article is entitled, Johnny Manziel Should Be the Man. And this was written by a columnist by the name of Jeffrey Chadiha. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of who this guy is, just really brief, if I can do so for a minute. This guy is a commentator. He's a senior writer for ESPN.com. He joined ESPN.com as a senior writer in 2007. He covering the National Football League. He's a frequent contributor to ESPN Radio, TV, and ESPN the Magazine. Let's see. He appeared on ESPN's Day 2 coverage of the 2008 NFL Draft. And in June of that same year, he made his first appearance on the set of NFL Live. Let's see. He has also been a forum guest on Jim Rome's Burning. But before he was at ESPN, he was an NFL writer for Sports Illustrated for 7 years. He worked for the San Francisco Examiner from 1996 to 2000, and also the Ann Arbor News from 93 to 96. So he definitely knows how to write. He's definitely been around. One last thing about this guy. He went to the University of Wyoming on a football scholarship before he got injured, and nagging injuries forced him to transfer to the University of Michigan, where he ultimately received a Bachelor of Arts in Communication in 93. So shout out to this man, very well educated, and knows exactly and has been around sports. And my condolences to him for what happened to him in his college years. And he is definitely treating himself very well. So here we go. Starting from the very beginning. And by the way, one other thing I'd like to point out about this guy before we move on to this article really quick, I dug up some more dirt on this guy, and this is the same columnist that basically said Russell Wilson will never be elite. Just putting it out there. I always had faith in Russell Wilson. I have known him. I've watched him when he was in college, and I knew he would be great. I knew he would be very successful at the next level. That's my take. But there are some guys like him that said Russell Wilson will never be elite. But anyway, so that's basically the guy that we're dealing with today, that I'm dealing with today particularly. So let's get started. So he starts off by basically saying, let me see here. And I'm going to read you guys on occasion. I'm going to read you guys some quotes from this article and break it down as best I can. So let's see here. Let's start here. It says here, starting from the very beginning, it says, quote, even with so much time left in the pre-draft evaluation process, it's already looking like the Houston Texans would be foolish to not draft Texas A&M quarterback Johnny Manziel with the first overall pick. He has made it known he would love to remain in his home state as a pro. The Texans also would be crazy to not take a quarterback when that is the most pressing need on this team. Add in the fact that there isn't a dramatically better signal caller in this class than Manziel, and you can see where this is going. The Texans might have a hard time selling any other choice to their fan base. Really? I find that very hard to believe, because there are some people in our fan base that love Teddy, that love Blake, that love... Some of them even love Jimmy Garoppolo for their quarterbacks. Some even say some in the fan base are saying trade the first pick, or if you can't, take Clowney. Some like Clowney. Some like this kid Aaron Donald. Some guys love let's see, who else do they love? They also love, heck, some guys are even asking for Derek Carr. Some of them are even asking for Derek Carr. So we'll see. I mean, this is it's not like this is the only guy. Plus, the number one pick. You know, when you have the number one pick, you really have to be sure. Now, in terms of selling it, I don't know. I mean, there are already people in the fan base that are clamoring for this kid. So I wouldn't say that they're going to have a hard time selling this kid, but selling any other choice, I'd be careful about that, because there are certain people that don't want him. Or there are some guys that do want him, but don't want to use the first pick on him. Now, some are saying due to need, and that's the word I'm going to use over and over again. Because of the word need, this is going to be quite interesting. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that this is very hard to sell. Don't get me wrong on that. But anyway, moving on to the second paragraph, and I'm going to skim through it just for you guys, just paraphrase it as best I can. Easy assumption is that Houston is facing the same situation that Vince Young created for them in 2006, when the UT star and Houston native was dying to join his hometown after a brilliant college career. It's not. Texans were smart enough to see they had more attractive options in that class, namely Mario Williams, who we ultimately selected, and Reggie Bush. Manziel is more polished, electrifying talent than Young ever was, one who would be a marketing dream for the Texans support staff. Okay. Let me make one thing clear. Does Houston ever need help marketing? I don't think so. You know, Houston, we sold out our arena. We sold out Reliant Stadium. Even when we were losing, even when we weren't that good, people were coming to the league. Were coming to the games. Why? Because we were missing the Oilers. People clamoring. People in Houston wanted a football team. And when we finally got one, people were coming because they love football so much. It's the one thing I love about Houston. We all miss football. We all miss the Oiler days. So with that, I say, wow. So with that, I say, we don't need any help marketing. Now, would he be a good help? Sure. But so did Reggie Bush and Vince Young. You saw what happened to their jersey sales when they entered the league. But this guy is saying more polished, electrifying talent than Young ever was. Electrifying, maybe. But last time I checked, Vince Young won a national championship in college. Johnny Manziel only has 2 years in college. Never won a national championship. He's won bowl games. He won 2 bowl games. I'll give him that. But let me ask you this. And Heisman Trophy, I'll give him that. I'll give him the Heisman Trophy. I'll give him all that. But let me ask you this. Vince Young, celebrated college player. How did he do in the pros? Not good. Tim Tebow, probably known as known by several as probably the best college player to ever play the game. How did he do in the pros? Not very well. Man, in terms of Manziel as most polished, I highly disagree. I highly disagree because he needs a lot of work. He is a project. He is not ready for that spot as a starting quarterback yet, right now. He needs work. He has some work to do. He has some improvement. He needs to improve big time. So, now in terms of comparing him to Vince Young, I can't really go that far because Vince Young, if I remember correctly, spent 4 years in college. Johnny Manziel only spent 2. If I'm remembering my numbers correctly. Now, back in those days, I never watched football. So if any of you guys that know for sure about Vince Young's college days, I'd love to hear what you guys know about his college days, because I never watched it. I only know what I heard. I only saw what I went back to go look. Like, perfect example, one game I saw that everyone was talking about was that national championship against USC. It's the one game I saw. So one game I went back to see. I haven't really taken the time to watch Vince Young's college days, but I'll be sure to do that. I'll be sure to do so just to stay on top of these players. Anyway, moving on to the next paragraph. And here we go. He says here, paraphrasing, it's also worth noting that this year's quarterback class doesn't have a player who just transcends all others. For all the red flags that critics like to attach to Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater and Blake Bortles have their own shortcomings. Bridgewater has a frame so slight that scouts question how he'll handle the pounding. Bortles has produced one sensational year during his college career, which could make him the next Mark Sanchez. In other words, it's not as if the Texans are going to be bailed out by some prospect morphing into the next Andrew Luck in the coming months. Okay. There's a lot of things. There's a couple things wrong with this paragraph, and I'm going to get to. Red flags, I wouldn't necessarily call his frame. When you talk about Teddy Bridgewater's frame, yeah, he's not the biggest guy, but neither was Russell Wilson. But you want to talk about someone that has a questionable frame? Tell Johnny Manziel to look in the mirror. Tell this guy to look at Johnny Manziel and compare him to Blake and compare him to a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater. Try comparing their two frames. First question I have for a couple people is, how do you think he's going to handle the pounding? If you have a question about Teddy Bridgewater's frame, how come you don't have the same question about Johnny Manziel's? His frame is smaller, if you think about it. That's all I have to answer for. That's the one thing I have on that. That's all I'm saying. It's all I'm saying for him. But let's see here. Now, moving on to this next part that it really gets me it gets me a little upset. Is talking about Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles produced one sensational year during his college career, which could make him the next Mark Sanchez. Okay. I never watched Mark Sanchez in college. I only know that he was coached under Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll wanted him to stay in college, but Mark Sanchez decided not to. You know, coming out of college, coming out of high school, I think he was recruited as the number one quarterback in the country, or a top quarterback in the country. I don't know exactly. But Mark Sanchez, you got to remember, guys, he came out of USC. And you look at the way that a lot of people are grading these USC guys. They're taking them, they're looking at these guys with a grain of salt. They really are, because think about this. Especially after Matt Leinart. And here's why. If you remember Mark Sanchez and his career with the New York Jets, the only thing that was criticized about him was the fact that the Jets were protecting him. They were coddling him too much. And he was drafted into a situation where you know, they had a good defense, and Rex Ryan's defense at the time was not to be trifled with, as well as They had LaDainian Tomlinson in the backfield. A guy like him in the backfield helping out Mark Sanchez. Now, of course, age and attrition kicked in and he had to retire from the game, and I respect that. And I'm not knocking him for something like that. But let me get one thing straight. Mark Sanchez was drafted into a situation by the New York Jets where it was defensive minded. You know, they really didn't put a lot of focus on offense. You want to and Woody Johnson, Mike Tannenbaum, and Rex Ryan made that point very clear. You know, Rex Ryan wanted to focus more on defense than his offense. He wanted to, Mike Tannenbaum basically made the choice that Mark Sanchez didn't need more weapons at his disposal. You know, when Mark Sanchez had a running game, and you know there are all these quarterbacks that can only be successful with a running game. That's fine, but the point is to be able to put the kind of situation for this guy to succeed. When they took Mark Sanchez's weapons away from him, he didn't do so hot. And when you look at Sanchez, he's got talent and he's in good physical shape. If you've seen him lately, he's in great physical shape, and he has a live ball. He can really throw the ball down the field, especially in the middle of the field. I really get impressed when I watch Mark Sanchez throw the ball in the middle of the field. So to say that, and also remember this, coming out of college, and even when he was with the Jets, you know, the people were saying that he's a California kid, no sense of urgency, sat behind a huge line, throw to All-American receivers, never get touched in a finesse conference. That's the kind of knock that a lot of these guys are giving these USC quarterbacks. You know, Matt Leinart. Now they didn't say about them then, but now they say about him. You know, Matt Leinart. He was given a big line and a lot of good receivers to throw to. Mark Sanchez had better talent. Matt Barkley, his junior year, had better talent. You know, and Matt Barkley is another example, because Matt Barkley, if he would have come out his junior year, he probably would have been the number one pick in the draft by some people's standards. People were saying he would be the best quarterback in that draft class if he would have come out that earlier. But the fact that, you know, that offensive line, but we all saw what happened with Matt Barkley when he didn't have his weapons nor an offensive line. And we all saw what happened to him. That's my point with a lot of these USC guys. Blake Bortles is nowhere near a USC kind of quarterback. He's big framed. At the combine, he showed he can make all the throws. I was very impressed with his combine performance, especially in the passing drills. So don't tell me that this guy is another Mark Sanchez, because that's just BS. That's just total BS, in my opinion. So, are any of these guys Andrew Luck? I said no. No one in this class is Andrew Luck. And I never said he was. And I'll get to that as soon as I finish this. So anyway, moving on to the following paragraph. Moving on to the next paragraph. He says, continuing to paraphrase here, it says here, instead Houston might have to accept that Manziel is their man so long as they doesn't flop at this pro day, which is one thing I will be waiting on. I will be waiting for that. It says here, if he weren't coachable, and some already wonder how he would coexist with Texans coach Bill O'Brien, man who made his name tutoring Tom Brady in New England, he wouldn't have vaulted to stardom in only 2 seasons at A&M. If Manziel had a lousy work ethic, another commonly mentioned concern, he wouldn't have been grinding under quarterback guru George Whitfield since before anybody ever knew his name outside of College Station. And if Manziel really is overrated, he wouldn't have someone like former Oklahoma and Dallas Cowboys head coach Barry Switzer talking about how he'd never seen a player dominate college football as Manziel did over the past 2 seasons. Okay. That right there really I really paused when I saw that. First of all, let me talk about the work ethic. I don't even remember his work ethic coming into play being criticized. The only guy that I hear about work ethic being criticized is Jadeveon Clowney, from what I hear, from what I've heard. So, I don't know what people are talking about his work ethic. All people were talking about were his antics. You know, so I wasn't really, I didn't really get that sense in the fact that, you know, he had a questionable work ethic. The only thing that people were concerned about was how he chose to spend his time, how he basically bought into his own brand after he won the Heisman Trophy, and how the way he handled it. Now, all credit to him. I have to give him this amount of credit. He has been very quiet on Twitter, and from what I've been hearing, he's been working with his quarterback guru, George Whitfield, on improving his game. And I hope to see him at the Pro Day prove his critics wrong. I want to see that. I really do. I want this guy to succeed. I want this guy to, I don't wish failure on anybody. I never do. I'm not that kind of person. I don't wish bad things on people. But, so I want to see how he does at his Pro Day. I really do, because that is the place I'm sure everyone is going to be watching. You know, they're even airing the John Gruden quarterback camp with him on the same day of his Pro Day. So you can imagine March 27th is basically considered Johnny Football Day, if you think about it. But so going back to the graft about Barry Switzer, he said, if Manziel really isn't overrated, he wouldn't have someone like Barry Switzer talking about how he'd never seen a player dominate college football as Manziel did over the past 2 seasons. Okay. My response to that is very simple. You put this, Barry Switzer is the same guy that puts Johnny Manziel in the same sentence with Michael Jordan and Oscar Robertson. And you can go hear my rant about that on another video I did on my channel. When you put this kid who has done nothing, that has done nothing in the NFL, not even in college, when you put this kid in the same sentence as a guy like Jordan, MJ, and the Big O, that's basically the definition of overrating. I'm sorry, but it's true. While some say overrated, some might say you're overhyping this kid too much, when he has not done anything. He has not done anything. And not only that, you know, first of all, no one compares to Michael Jordan. And I'm not going to go into the details on that. You can go hear that on my other video on YouTube. I'm just saying, when you put this kid's name, wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac, in the same sentence with a 6-time NBA champion Michael Jordan, who, by the way, was surrounded by a lot of talent in his championship days. And just to name a few, how about Scottie Pippen? How about Steve Kerr? How about John Paxson? How about Dennis Rodman? How about Tony Kukoc? Ron Harper, Luke Longley, and of course was coached by the best coach in the NBA, Phil Jackson. So while I always believe Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player to ever play, and by the way, I did see him play when I was little. I did see his second three-peat when I was little. Just a little FYI, guys. I do not like that people put this kid on a pedestal as high as Michael Jordan or Oscar Robertson. Now, I can't speak I can't say anything about Oscar Robertson because I never got to see him play. I'm too young for that. I was born in '89, but I did watch Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan was surrounded by a lot of good players, a lot of great players, actually, good to great players, I should say, and coached by the best coach in the league, Phil Jackson, and was a team player. It is not 1-on-5. You want to talk about 1-on-5? Talk to Kobe Bryant. He knows all about that. That's basically what Kobe Bryant loves to play, but I'm not going to get into that. You want to talk about and to say, never seen a player dominate college football as Manziel did over 2 seasons. Tim Tebow did it for 4. Vince Young did it for 4. Why are you giving this kid such high praise when we have other college players that have been more dominant for more and have decided to play in college for 4 years, that have more credentials? Hell, if you want to talk about dominating college football, talk about A.J. McCarron, a 3-time national champion, Johnny Unitas Golden Arm winner. You want to talk about a guy dominating college football. Now, granted, in his first ring, which is 2010, he wasn't the starting quarterback. I'm just saying that you look at A.J. McCarron in his days as the starter, in his days as the starting quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and the way that he threw the ball and he orchestrated that pro-style system. You were going to want to talk about dominating college football. Talk about A.J. McCarron. Talk about the way that he has grown throughout his college career. That is a guy you should be talking about. That's the guy that you should be calling dominant. The way that he has grown in Alabama as a quarterback, that's the guy you should be talking about. Now, I don't see anyone hyping this guy up. This is the same guy that won 2 national championships and whose girlfriend got a lot more airtime than he did. During the national championship at Notre Dame. Y'all remember that? Probably not, because y'all are probably thinking about Blake Bortles' girlfriend, but that's another issue. But anyway, the fact that Barry Switzer, and I have nothing but respect for him, Super Bowl winning coach and a college national championship winning coach, but to put this kid on such a pedestal when he has not done anything yet, when he has not been drafted, when he hasn't even taken a snap in the NFL, that's my definition of overrated. And in some people's eyes, that is also their definition as well. So you want to talk about overrating Barry Switzer? You just did it. We just did it by comparing him to 2 of the greatest basketball players to ever play, who were on very good teams, who did not win those championships by themselves. I'm just saying, it's a team game. Michael Jordan did not win by himself. Johnny Manziel, when he was in college, did not win by himself. Tim Tebow did not win by himself. A.J. McCarron did not win by himself. Even Case Keenum. I'll even put Case Keenum, who's the most prolific college passer ever right now, stats-wise. He did not win those. He didn't do all those things by himself. You had to have an O-line protecting. You had to have receivers. You had to have a running back. You had to have a good coach, a good culture. And I'll address Case Keenum's. There's a quote in here that I really like, that I want you guys to pay attention to. Moving on. Let's see. Moving on, he says, with all due respect to ESPN NFL analyst Ron Jaworski, who recently claimed that early film study led him to believe Manziel wasn't worth a pick in the first 3 rounds. Playing QB in the league these days isn't about dominating from the pocket anymore. It's about making plays out of nothing when all hell is breaking loose around you. Really? It isn't just about dominating from the pocket anymore, but guess what? That's what a lot of scouts look for. Why, if that's the case, why do scouts look for pocket mechanics? Look for pocket presence. Look for poise. Look for all of these pocket tangibles from a quarterback. Why do they look at them? Why do they make that a priority? Why do they make that a priority in their scouting report when it comes to quarterbacks? Because guess what? It's still important. It's still the most dominating factor, to use his word. Now, in terms of making plays out of nothing, I tend to lean towards the expertise of a guy from NFL Films that went on a podcast a couple days ago, actually, and basically talked about comparing Johnny Manziel and Russell Wilson, and said there is no comparison because Russell Wilson, the way he runs the ball, he thinks about what he does before he does it. Johnny Manziel just runs and then thinks. And the perfect example is the play that everyone loves to talk about from when he played the University of Alabama this past season. You remember that play where he was basically scrambling for his life, running backwards, spinning away from guys, and then chucking the ball in the air, hoping for somebody to grab it? In the NFL, that's not going to work. A lot of the things that he did in college is not going to work in the pros. I'm sorry. In the NFL, you are not going to have 5 seconds to throw. In the NFL, you are going to be asked to throw from the pocket. And here's another thing. And it's the one thing that I love listening to this guy's podcast. This guy on the podcast. He's basically said that when you are a quarterback in the National Football League or even in college, in some programs, there is a structure in place for the quarterback to learn and execute effectively. And when you show that you are unable to do so effectively, it's going to cause concern for a lot of teams. When the structure is in place, when a play is drawn up where you're basically asked to go through your reads, saying if this guy, look for this guy on this pattern if it's in zone, look for this guy if it's in man coverage, and if you see a blitz, check down. If you see a blitz, hot route your guy. Hot route your slot guy, or hot route your tight end, hot route your running back. These plays are placed in structure. And the one word I'll use is, when he has said, when all hell is breaking loose around you, guess what? In the NFL, it's the case on every snap, because in the NFL, defenses are faster, defenses are stronger, defenses are bigger. You are not going to be able to get away with these things. In NFL, you have to be able to work in the structure and be able to execute the play that is drawn up. It's what I always say about the pros, the difference. It is a structure. It is something that is placed in place, that must be executed well. And when tape shows that you are unable to execute it effectively and efficiently, your days as the quarterback are numbered. That is why there are a lot of these guys in the league that don't have jobs, because they can't execute it, because they can't do certain things, or they can't learn certain things. Look at Josh Freeman. Look at the way that he struggled transferring from the Buccaneers to Minnesota. Late for meetings, didn't know the playbook, and was very sloppy. It was very lazy. Those are the reports I heard about Josh Freeman. When you showed that unwillingness to work and learn the structure, learn the philosophy, buy into the philosophy, execute the plays called effectively, and make good decisions. When you can't do those things, you're not going to get a chance. And that's how it works in the league. And Johnny Manziel really has to work on his decision making. I'm sorry, he does. It's a fact. And he goes on to say, the one aspect of Manziel's game means he'll have a chance to prosper and possibly help an NFL team right away. Look at what Michael Vick did for the Falcons in his first full season as a starter, when he led them to the playoffs 1 year after being the top pick in the 2001 draft. We should also remember the buzz Cam Newton created in his first season, as well as Colin Kaepernick once he became the starter. Texans, these players thrived early because they could make plays with their feet. Manziel could do exactly the same thing for the Texans. Okay, that is incomplete. First of all, let's look at Michael Vick's first season. In Michael Vick's first season for the Falcons, he was not a polished passer. I will give Manziel this. he's a more polished passer than Michael Vick was coming out of college. Because if you look at Michael Vick in his career, he was not a good passer. When he took the Atlanta Falcons by storm, took the NFL by storm, it was run first, then scramble. It was a handoff to the running back or scramble when he was in the pocket. And at the time, it worked. But durability is an issue for him. And the one thing about Michael Vick coming out of college that people were knocking was his frame. He did not have the biggest frame. He did not have any of those things that you look as a prototypical pocket passer. And now look at him. There's questions about his future in Philadelphia. So, if anything, I hope this doesn't happen to Johnny Manziel. But I'm just saying that if he doesn't learn quickly to play from the pocket, he's not going to be able to last very long. Just like Michael Vick. Now, like I said, I hope not. But I'm just saying it's possible. I'm just saying that is very possible. Now, looking at Cam Newton. Cam Newton, coming out of college, you remember the whole thing about Cam Newton? Cam Newton was heavily criticized for his accuracy, for being able to throw the ball downfield, for being able to make the accurate pass down the field. And guess what? He came into the NFL, drafted number 1 overall. And keep this in mind. The NFL was going through a lockout at the time. Y'all remember that? The NFL going through a lockout season, entered the Carolina Panthers organization, and they basically said, Cam, learn the playbook, all of it, go. He was asked to learn the offense with no babysitting, no hand-holding. He was given the keys to the franchise. He was asked to carry a below average to average team. And he lit up and he put up numbers. We'll give him that, but it didn't result in wins. Carolina over time had to put a team around Cam Newton. And now he has a running game. He's got decent receivers. He's got a defense. Now with Luke Kuechly, a guy like Luke Kuechly, patrolling the middle of the field. Cam Newton is the one thing I always say about Cam Newton. Cam Newton, he had his own concerns as he was entering the league. But Cam Newton had to have pieces around him for him to succeed. It's the one thing I said about football and basketball. It's a team sport. These players do not win by themselves. Eli Manning did not win 2 championships by himself. Hell, Tom Brady did not win 3 Super Bowls by himself. He didn't. I don't need to go into the details, but I'm sure all of you that watch those Super Bowls, y'all can validate that. John Elway didn't win by himself. There was so many times in his career where John Elway came up short in the big game. And he didn't win until he got Terrell Davis. That was the missing key in Mike Shanahan's offense. When John Elway was still the quarterback for the Denver Broncos. These football teams, these quarterbacks do not win by themselves. I don't know how many times I have to say that. Same with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, when he took over the starting role for Alex Smith when he got injured, he had a defense around him. He had weapons around him. Michael Crabtree became his best friend. And Colin Kaepernick was already seeing playing time during the regular season, when they were running wildcat plays with him because of what he can do. And he didn't have to. And when he was put into the offensive role, they changed the offensive formations from under center to pistol. And Colin Kaepernick had no problem with that because if you remember, Colin Kaepernick came out of the University of Nevada, basically the school that invented the pistol. So of course Colin Kaepernick was going to thrive in that system. That's why another thing too is Colin Kaepernick at the time, nobody knew how to prepare for him. He was an enigma. And not only that, and I pointed this out, and I already said, he had a team around him. He had a team around him. He had an O-line. He had receivers. He had a defense that was giving up plays in the pass, that were giving up passing plays, but were dominant against the run. So don't tell me that these guys, that Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick enter the NFL and then they're the big difference. No. They built the team around him. That is what these organizations are paid to do. That's what the whole goal of the organization is. Find the quarterback to build around for the next 15 to 20 years. It is fact, and it has been shown throughout history. And if you don't believe me, look at the quarterbacks that are in place now. Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Andy Dalton, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. They put players around them. They are putting pieces around them. Putting them in the best spot to win. Putting the team in the spot to win. That's my point. One guy does not make the difference. Now, in the game, perhaps. But when it comes to developing a team, when it comes to actually being in the game, everyone has a job to do. And the job must be executed proper. And the job must be executed for the team to have success. And it's a game of chess. And then after that, you go out there and execute, and we'll see who the better guy is. Game of chess. It goes back to my topic about structure. The structure must be executed for the plan to succeed. And then it's just a matter of who outsmarts the other. It is the way that has been going on in football for a long time. So, let's see here. Aside from that, I'm continuing. He says, aside from that, Manziel already is proving that he wants to take professional football seriously. He made a good enough impression at the Combine that many teams came away feeling that he was more mature than anticipated. Also kept a relatively low profile since declaring for the draft, including making the wise decision to not attend this year's Super Bowl in order to continue focusing on his training. For all the comments about his partying lifestyle, which have reached the point that you'd swear he was the love child of Charlie Sheen and Lindsay Lohan, I think that's a little low. He clearly understands this is the time when he needs to alter that perception. Like I said, I give him credit. I give him credit for being quiet and focusing on his work. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. I want to see if he's able, and I want to see the results at his pro day. So, moving on. It's also clear that Houston shouldn't be afraid of a quarterback with a few warts in his past. The Texans' previous two regular starters, Matt Schaub and David Carr, were incredibly nice guys, but Houston fans weren't praising Schaub's professionalism when he was throwing pick six after pick six last season before eventually losing his job. They also weren't that compassionate toward Carr, who was beaten into submission behind a porous offensive line before being run out of time. Okay. How many times do I have to say this? It's a team game. And let's look at these two guys, Matt Schaub and David Carr. I'll start with David Carr. You know, for those of you that know me, I always supported the Texans, but I never followed them as closely as I do now. You know, back when the Texans organization was first entered the league, I didn't know anything about the game of football. But I did always support the Texans. I always supported my Texans. I'm a Houston guy. I'm a Houston guy forever. That's the fact. David Carr did not have an O-line, and everyone wants to put it on his shoulders. And everyone puts it on his shoulders. You really think that I goes back. You really think it's the quarterback's fault that the offensive line wasn't doing their job? It's the quarterback's fault? Really? I would love to hear these people that really believe that it's the quarterback's fault that the offensive line did not protect him. Really need to get there. Really need to get themselves checked, because that is just flat out ridiculous. Now, Matt Schaub, yeah, he threw pick six after pick six after pick six. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what happened to him. I can't tell you that. But I look at Matt Schaub, and entering the season, there were problems. There were issues first game of the season. And I should have seen it. And I was one of those people that was blind to what happened in the offseason. Ed Reed missed time. Arian Foster was missing some time. Andre Johnson was missing some time. You know, there's a reason you have training camp. There's a reason that you have training camp. It's to establish a chemistry. It's to get to know your guys on and off the field and establish a chemistry with them, so that you are able to so that y'all are able to learn the structure and get to know each other and get to know how things are going to be run with these guys. It's fact. Matt Schaub, you know, at times Arian Foster was not 100%. You know, those pick sixes, you know, and we had, just to let you know, we did have Seattle on the run. That game could have been a win. It wasn't all Matt Schaub's fault. But the way that people were treating Matt Schaub last year, it just made me sick to my stomach. It really made me sick to my stomach to have these fans really go to his house and to actually threaten him. And to actually threaten him and his family. That's just low. I know fans are angry, but to go so far as to go to a football player's house and to threaten and to potentially risk him and his family, that's just flat out ridiculous. Those guys should be ashamed of themselves. And to everyone that thinks that, and you know, remember this, that defense was giving up some plays. It wasn't all Matt Schaub's fault. Matt Schaub was doing the best that he could, but that offensive line was trouble. That offensive line struggled too. And we all saw that at the end of the year. It wasn't all Matt Schaub's fault. It's not Matt Schaub's fault that the offensive line isn't doing their job. It's not his fault. It's a team game. I don't know how many times I'm going to end up saying this on this channel. I wish I had a counter. I really wish I had a counter for every time I say team game in this video, in this episode. I really want to know. But anyway, it's not all the quarterback's fault. There are 52 other guys on the roster too. Finally, moving on to the last three paragraphs, and I'll try and wrap this up as quick as I can before I go too far, before this episode gets too long. In fact, it's fair to say Houston could use a lot more fiery personalities on its roster for all the success that J.J. Watt has enjoyed in his brief career. He's not exactly an inspirational force. The same can be said of other stars like layback types like Andre Johnson and Arian Foster. Every team needs a player who's the emotional leader. Even Manziel's biggest haters have to admit his on-field passion gives him a chance to be that kind of player in Houston. Let me tell you guys one thing about fiery personality. You want to talk about a fiery personality? I dare you guys to go watch the Indianapolis game when Case Keenum got his first home start on Sunday Night Football. Did you not see the way that the team reacted around him when he was having success? Did you not see the way that he was all fired? Did you not see his reaction to his big plays from himself? Do you not see the way that he reacted when he started having those successful plays, that successful run early when he was given the chance? Did you not see the way he was fired up? I dare you to go back and watch that tape and see how Case Keenum was so pumped up, as well as the whole stadium, and as well as the bench. I urge you guys, I dare you guys to go look at him. You want to talk about fiery personality, and that's not the only time that he has shown it. You're talking, I'm the guy that has watched Case Keenum play since he was a freshman in college. I've seen this kid play. I've seen that personality up close and personal. I have seen him. I've seen him with these two eyes. With these two eyes. Inspire. Be an inspirational, a motivational leader for his team. You want to talk about a fiery personality? You got one in the locker room already. You have one in the locker room already. So don't tell me that this kid, this 18-year-old kid can walk, I'm sorry, not 18, 20-year-old kid can walk into the franchise and fire someone up. That's what they said. The same thing was said about Tebow. A lot of people were saying that Tebow could walk into the New York Jets locker room and basically turn into that locker room that are full of men and turn that franchise around. Same with the Denver Broncos. It's complete BS. Now, I am of a believer of show me first and then talk. Case Keenum showed me, especially in college. He earned that leadership role. He showed what he could do in college. That's why I believe in him. That's why I believe in him. Because I've seen him do it for a lot longer. For 5 years, not 4. Because remember, he was granted a 6th eligible year. So you want to talk about emotional, fiery personality? You got one already. And in conclusion, now does that mean there won't be challenges if Manziel ends up at Houston? No, he will have to deal with the same learning curve that faces every young quarterback in the league. Upside is that more inexperienced signal callers are growing at a faster rate. And the cost of using a high pick on a rookie QB isn't nearly as frightening as it was a few years back. That's a true. That is true. That is very true. I have nothing to say about that one. That is very true. He's got a lot of work. It's going to be very challenging. It's not going to be easy. And with the new collective bargaining agreement, taking a guy in the top pick and taking a guy high in the draft is not going to cost your franchise financially as it did, like, for example, pre-Sam Bradford. The final paragraph says, question now is whether Houston has the courage to take a chance on Manziel. He's already dominated the toughest conference in college football and proven that he's willing to be more than just a playground playmaker. In fact, we may just be seeing a glimpse of what Johnny could become in the near future. As he publicly said, Texans will surely hate themselves if they end up watching that maturation from an opposing sideline. I'd be very hesitant to say that. Because first of all, if he goes to somewhere else, we don't know how he's going to mature. We don't know if he's going to mature the right way. So for all I know, Houston could be the ideal place for him to mature. But I don't know that. I don't know that because I don't know the culture in Jacksonville. I don't know the culture in Oakland. I don't know the culture in Cleveland. I don't know the culture in any other franchise that is in need of a quarterback at the moment. Now, do we have the courage to take a chance on him? Bill O'Brien and Rick Smith are not the kind of guy to put up with a lot of crap. They are not going to put up with a lot of crap, and this team, in my opinion, is ready to win now. We really are. We don't have a lot of missing pieces on this line. Now, we'll see how free agency hits in 10 days, how free agency hurts us, and people are saying that the Texans aren't going to do much in free agency. We shall see. We shall see how that works. But, and there's still a lot, and speaking of free agency, that's going to play a determining factor in how a lot of teams, not just the Texans, but a lot of teams address the draft. There's a reason why free agency is done before the draft. There's a reason for that. So, when he say already dominated the toughest conference in college football, last time I checked, he didn't win an SEC championship. Last time I checked, he didn't win a national championship. For all I know, last time I checked, Tim Tebow and A.J. McCarron were more dominant in the SEC than Johnny Manziel. Just putting that out there. Tim Tebow was a more dominant SEC player than Johnny Manziel. You can even argue A.J. McCarron was a more dominant player. And I hate it when they say he dominated the toughest conference. No, his team dominated the best conference. Kevin Sumlin's football team were playing, were producing, were winning games in the toughest conference. Now, it wasn't good enough to get to an SEC championship game. It wasn't good enough to get to a national championship game. So, all I'm saying is don't put so many eggs in this kid's basket. He still has a lot of work to do. Now, are we seeing a glimpse of what's to come? Sure we are. Perhaps. The word is perhaps, because we don't know anything yet. We don't know anything yet. I have yet to see him throw. All I have to go on, and plus I've only seen a little snippet of the Gruden's QB camp with him. And he's saying all the right things. More credit to him on that, but I want to see him go out there and produce. I want to see him go out there on his pro day and show the world why he should be considered a top pick. And then I'll see how the Texans address the quarterback issue, because he's not going to be the only one having a pro day. Bridgewater's having a pro day. Blake Bortles is having a pro day. I'm sure Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sure all these other guys are going to have pro days as well. There's still a lot of work to do. So, all I'm saying is that's why I don't buy into a lot of stuff that is said before free agency, like all these mock drafts, all these speculations. I don't buy into them until after free agency is over, because that's when I truly understand. That's when I truly have a better idea as to how teams are going to look at the draft. And that's what I mean. And that is why when I read an article like this, I'm not buying. I don't buy it. Because I haven't seen anything yet. I have not seen anything yet. And until I do, then I might change my tune a tad. But I'm not going to change my tune in the fact that he still has work to do, particularly from the pocket. That is a fact, and that is something that is going to remain true until he convinces me otherwise. So, that pretty much does it on this edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this YouTube video, please go ahead and leave a like. I'd appreciate it very much. In the comment section below, tell me what you guys think about the article. I'll post the article in the description of this video for you guys to see, to read for yourself, and tell me what you guys think about this article. Is there anything that catches your attention? Tell me in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to hear what you guys think. For more Houston Texans coverage provided by yours truly, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll be here covering all the latest regarding your Houston Texans all year long. And finally, please be sure to check out my Bulls on Parade Talk podcast on talkshoe.com. The full link to that podcast will be in the description below the video for those that are watching on YouTube. And to all of you that have, and to all of you that are listening on the podcast, go ahead. The full link to this video will be on this episode's info section on the site, on the podcast website. If you have any questions or concerns regarding anything, whether it's YouTube or podcast or Texans related, go ahead and send me a message. I'll do my absolute best to reply to you guys as soon as possible. As always, this is your host Joshua Signs, signing off.